Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 59 of the White Knuckle Podcast, powered by Ozonics. Undetectable, undeniable. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode number 59 of the White Knuckle Podcast. Today is going to be a absolute blast of a show to listen to. We had a ton of fun doing it, and I don't know that I've ever gotten off a podcast and had my abs hurt from laughing so loud. So without further ado, I'll just get the show on the road. Hey everybody, welcome back to the White Knuckle Podcast. Today I have joined with me my esteemed co-host Todd Pringnitz down in Iowa, and on the other line we have the world-famous Jeff Fredrick from Jeff Frederick Champion's Choice Turkey Calls. Hey guys, how's it going?
Good, very good.
It's going awesome in Iowa, man. It's a little too bright for shed hunting, but I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, and we have too much snow here for shed hunting.
Holy cow. It's been really mild here in Iowa, but I mean, it's been like, we had like two or three weeks of like really warm weather, and then I got a little bit colder. Now it's been in the 40s and pretty much like perfect, really. So can't complain too much, but how much snow do you guys still have up there?
Well, most of my property is on a north-facing driftless region slope, so yeah, it's up to the top of my burleys yet.
Oh my goodness, really?
Well, we had gotten 8 or 9 inches last Monday, so yeah, that buried all the sheds.
Yeah, we got probably 6 inches. All of my lease is in the driftless region as well, and we probably got 6 there. But I was there Sunday putting up no trespassing signs, and it was, all the south-facing slopes, it was starting to disappear, and all the north-facing slopes, it was not disappearing quite as fast. But I will say one nice thing about that was I flew a drone over this lease that I got for the first time this year. I flew a drone over it, and it was very easy to see north and south-facing slopes and the different contours and things of that nature, just because of the snow on one side and not on the other. So anyway, well,
dude, I could talk about drones on snow like all day, but real quick question: can you actually see deer bedded and stuff?
If I was low enough, I suspect. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if trees are 50 feet tall, let's say, or 50 feet is probably the max, I would say. You could absolutely. If I went slow enough, I could see them, but I don't know that I've ever seen them unless they were running because I scared them. But I don't know that I've ever seen.
Oh, now here's what I want you to try this spring, Jason. Is early in the morning, I want you to sneak that drone up to a gobbling turkey on the roost and get some above the gobbler perspective of turkey gobbling on the roost. Could you do that for me?
It does not have audio. However.
Oh shoot!
The props would drown out any sound that it would get.
Oh sure.
No, that's not true. If you put a fan on that drone, then you'd be good to go.
Oh, true.
A turkey fan.
A turkey.
Can you imagine the footage?
Exactly.
That could be done. I think I could do that.
I can imagine the feathers getting caught in the propeller and spewing everywhere right about now.
It's sure to be a great idea. Someone's going to pick up on it now.
Yeah.
Aerial turkey. What do they call it? Whacking.
Aerial reaping.
Aerial reaping. So Jeff, you got to set us straight because neither one of us know what the heck we're doing turkey hunting. I'll put it that way.
Oh no! Hey, speak for yourself here. First, we need to get a proper introduction for Jeff. Jeff and I grew up together. We'll keep that part of it to a minimum.
Yep.
It's better. Nothing legal is involved, but Yeah, there's like Z Cavaricis and some other stuff. We won't talk about it.
Now you're dating us.
and clocks around our neck and MC Hammer, Vanilla Ice. Yeah. Anyway, but Jeff, you moved away from where we grew up. Your dad's a taxidermist, still down in Cambria, and you now live in the La Crosse area somewhere. And have made really turkey hunting and a full-time business, right?
Yeah. Well, primarily I'm a stay-at-home dad. That takes a little time, but my turkey call and decoy business is kind of my focus when the kids are at school. Nice.
Well, we'll get back to your turkey decoy because that's something that I'm kind of passionate about in just a minute. But let's talk real quick about what calls real quick that you offer, and then we can get into some technique and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I hand make turkey calls, and I do it the old-fashioned way. I've tried speeding up the process, and personally, I've never been happy with speeding up the process, so I've just stuck to my guns. I can build maybe 10 calls an hour the way I do it, but I'm very confident it's, stretching mouth calls, stretching latex for mouth calls is kind of an art, and I found it very difficult to get the results that I like out of it, in a mass production type situation.
I think it would be fair to say that when it comes to manufacturing, you're probably as fussy as Todd.
Yeah.
Hey, if you want to do it right, you can do it in volume, or you can do it right.
Exactly. I love that. Yep. And and I think especially hunters really appreciate the time and effort put forth. And I think hunters, because of how passionate we are, we love to have very good things to use. We don't like cheap stuff.
Well, especially the call market. Wow, that's the one thing I always notice going to all the different trade shows we go to in the springtime, like this time of year. Dude, the turkey guys are crazy when it comes to call, and they spend some stupid money on that stuff where, we were selling saws or something, and they look at that and say, geez, $40, and they go spend $150 on a slate call next door or whatever without even blinking an eye.
Oh yeah, I'm to the point of being geeky about it. I'm so crazy about the sound of my turkey calls, and you want to know why that's so important, and I kind of discovered this. It's always been something I known, but the more successful turkey hunters are the guys who love the sound of their calling. That's such a big key thing. If you're not convinced in your own mind that your calling sounds good and you like it, your odds, it's just a numbers game. The odds go way down if you're not confident with what you're doing. Turkeys don't care what it sounds like. You gotta like the sound of your call. You'll see results. You'll have a lot more success when you like the sound of your calls. It's the mental state. It's the confidence level that you're hunting with. Because as hunters, we can't control what's happening out there in the turkey flock. All the complex and minutia of detail that is going on that we as humans will never understand what's going on in the turkey flock. We got to just play the game and keep upping our odds, up your odds. And the more you do that over the long haul, the more successful you're going to be.
I would attribute that to just the confidence as a whitetail hunter, because I have to associate everything back to whitetail hunting, as you remember.
No, it's totally similar. I see mistakes that I make when I'm whitetail hunting that I just go, I sit back and I say to myself, what are you doing? I would never do that turkey hunting. Falling into ruts and, bad habits and sit in a spot too many times because you saw a giant buck there 2 weeks ago.
It's the same thing. But again, when you have that confidence level, man, it keeps you going, and that's half the battle, generally.
Yeah. Yep. That is 100. It's the persistence. I mean, one thing that I've had a few people tell me after they've hunted with me is like, man, you're so you're so persistent. It's almost like to the point of being annoying that I just keep relentlessly hammering on the turkey until he finally gives up and comes in.
That's usually what. I mean, dude. Again, back to whitetail hunting. Usually, the guys who kill big bucks every year aren't the best hunters in the world. They're the most persistent, passionate guys. Because, dude, as you know, things don't go right half the time, or even more than half the time.
No,
so your ability
if you're not making mistakes, I mean, oh my goodness, the mistakes I make turkey hunting and especially archery hunting. Oh my goodness, for whitetails. Yeah, I wish you just, hindsight is just always best.
Well, I have a question to start us out, Jeff. That's something I've been kind of pondering. We did a podcast not too long ago with Cuz Strickland, and he's a turkey maniac as well. So we always enjoy hearing his opinions. And I have no problem playing the inexperienced turkey hunter in this conversation because I truly believe that. I don't know much more than I did 10 years ago.
Hey, if we can, Todd, let's just back up for a second and be honest with Jeff. You go out to a blind and you sit in the blind and you wait until they come. Is that?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'll call too if it doesn't sound too obnoxious. But basically, yeah. I mean, I have all my spots set up. I'm kind of lucky where I got some really nice fields. But for self-filming and filming turkey hunts with a bow, blinds are kind of a necessity. So I'll have everything set up in advance and just through past history, kind of know where the flocks are and stuff like that. But one of my questions for you is, when do you hunt turkeys in the timber as opposed to the fields? Because that's one thing. Never really had any success in the timber before. The only time I've really ever hunted in the woods is when basically we weren't seeing anything on the fields, and so it was just kind of the next, we got to try someplace. What's your rule of thumb for that, Jeff?
It's not going to be at all what you expect. It depends on the piece of land that I hunt. Now, my favorite style of hunting is by working birds in the timber, and setting up in a fashion that you're tricking them. You're playing a little card game with them, and they make a move and you make a move, and you're kind of doing that. That's a real fun style of hunting for me. I have great farms to hunt that have no places in the driftless region where you can do that type of hunt. Then I put my double bull blind out in the field with my decoys, and I hunt them in that fashion. And I enjoy both styles immensely. But as far as telling you specifically, well, if it's sunny out, go out in an open field. If it's, April 10th, you're going to have to figure that out because, again, the complexities of what's going on in the turkey world, it's not the right thing for me to do. A lot of people want to hear an answer that would make them think, well, okay, Jeff said that, in the first half of the season, if it's a sunny day, sit out in the field. I'm doing you a disservice by saying that.
I was hoping you were going to have a turkey location app where you basically just download this app.
Well, sure. Now, if you go to Jeff Fredrick Champion's Choice, I have my app, and it'll tell you with the wind and I'll tell you right where the birds are going to be.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I I love getting out in a wide open field, and here's what I love doing is I get right in the middle of the field, yep. With my decoys. I rarely make setups where my blind is on the edge of the field, unless it's a very small field, like only 40 yards across. But if it's 100 yards across or a half mile across, I'm trying to get kind of more right out in the middle. In a place where there's super good visibility.
Well, but one of the things this falls right into it, so I want to mention it. One of my notes on here was, it seems like what I've noticed, kind of like whitetails, they either want to be in the low points of fields or in the high points of fields. And it seems like the property I hunt, Jason's actually going to be hunting whitetails with me this year, but it's a giant ag field, and there's some high spots, and sure enough, that seems to be where they congregate. Is that something that you've observed in the past too? They want to be in those high areas so they can have a better view of everything.
Yeah, I do like to set up high. I do see turkeys, in the fields on the high spots, but I also see them. Like I said, it's so dependent on what's happening right then and there. Typically, the gobblers are going to want to display a little bit higher because, they can have more odds of the hens viewing him up there, once he's alone. But as soon as the hens walk over and feed down into the dip, he's going to follow them. So I like personally to stay high and visible with my setups when I'm in an open field. Yeah.
One other quick question in regard to the same thing. You said you like to move your blinds out in the middle of the open. Do you think it actually attracts the turkeys to a certain degree, like where it is like almost like a terrain feature that they want to be kind of next to, or do they just literally have no clue what it is?
My gut impression is they literally have no clue. I have seen negative responses from turkeys with blinds, and it's typically when I try hiding it more. When they can see it at a distance, and, you've seen the turkey walk out in the field, they give it a once-over, and they stand there, and as long as that's when you sit still inside the blind, but once everything in their mind is, okay, because, I've seen the pickup truck parked out in the field, stationary, sitting there, and, the whole flock feeds right by. The toms are strutting 15 feet off of the bumper of a nice, shiny pickup truck. I think if it's stationary and non-moving and not threatening, turkeys are pretty sharp at picking up on what's a danger and what's not.
So let's switch gears for just a second if we can. What are your thoughts on trying to get it done with a bow, Jeff? I mentioned it to Cousin Strickland. I said, hey, what's your best tip? And he told me to leave my bow at home. He said to get a 20 gauge or a 12 gauge instead and shoot him in the face because that's what God meant them for.
So I got to tell you right now, I've never shot a turkey with the bow, but I have very close friends that I hunt with who are strict bow hunters.
Oh, really?
And I'm gonna do it someday, and I'm kind of saving myself for the right situation, right? But anyway, my friend who has shot a lot of turkeys with the bow has really come down to shooting them on the top of the drumsticks. That's what he likes to do. My biggest piece of advice to anyone who's bow hunting is clean your buddy's turkeys for them, skin them out, and look at the body. Look at the drumsticks, turn it at different angles, and it's that little, it's low in the back. It's almost your feeling would be like you're shooting them in the guts. But it's right off the top of the drumsticks is the best vital area. I'm going to do it someday. The big appeal to me of shooting them with a bow is it's a silent sport. That's what's super cool about it. You know, you're not ending the hunt with a round of.
To me, my favorite aspect of bow hunting turkeys is the sound it makes when you slam one.
Yeah.
right in the chest, you know, and it's the I would say, unless you're an avid bow hunter who has a lot of experience hunting, I would stick to a gun, because the tough part about turkeys is they do not sit still. When they come into your decoy setup, you are shooting a moving animal, and those things, depending on whether they're inflated, to a full strut, a half strut, or whatever, it's very deceiving. And they twist on the top of those legs so quickly. You really, really need to be have a close range shot, and usually aim a little.
The strutting turkey is the most deceiving thing to look at because of how on the back the feathers are standing on end. They're constantly putting their wings down and then back up. And
it's tough, man. But years ago, a guy, I forget who it was. I don't remember if it was you, Jeff, or not. But one of our guests made a comment to me: aim high, watch them die. Hit low, there they go. And I've done that over the years, where you look like it looks like you're aiming at center mass, and you just hit them low, right, especially in the breast area, and there is nothing to kill them. Nothing to kill them there. So you got to hit them a little bit higher than you would normally. And I always aim right for the center of the wing butt, just to tickle high, and I usually end up hitting just to tickle low. But and then there's guys who do the headshot. Some guys argue, and I have friends who are absolutely insane good turkey hunters, and they kill giants every year. And that's what they've switched to, is they started using the Magnus bullhead and a couple of the other couple style ones. But for me, I don't know. There's just something about schwacking a turkey in the body, and maybe it's a closer association to whitetail hunting or something. I don't know, but it's a rush. I don't care what anybody says. If you've never been at full draw on a bird 5 feet in front of your blind, there's nothing like it, man. It's awesome.
It's a rush.
Okay, so humor me and hear me out, Todd. One of the best memories that I have of turkey hunting is, and Jeff, you were there part of the time, and then other parts of the time you weren't, just because you were over in the southwest part of the state. But one of the most fun parts of turkey hunting for me was the chase. It was being able to go to them, and it was a different chess match than what you have with a whitetail, albeit chess match is a chess match. It's just different, and being able to be mobile is the key in that game, is it not?
Oh, and again, like I say, that to me too, because that's kind of where I started when I was turkey hunting, is, and especially in the driftless region where the severe terrain, the number of gobblers I've called in to 30 yards and never seen is tremendous, just because of the terrain and learning the acoustics of the hills, and that just adds a whole level of enjoyment, I think, to my hunting, and then just plain walking around in such beautiful country. How can you beat it?
Well, I agree, and Todd's property is, although similar, it's similar to a much smaller degree. I am now hunting this year. I'm going to be hunting in the driftless region down by the southwest part of the state, Wazeeka, Boscobel, Blue River, that area. So that's going to be a whole different ball game than what I'm worth. What I was used to probably what I'm worth. But
Hunting Central, yeah. Yep.
yeah, you know where I hunted before. You've been out there, and it's just it's just a different deal. And it in many ways where I used to hunt is a lot like where Todd hunts now, in that, you know, to an extent you can pattern a bird. And I can't remember the last time that I called one in, and, you know, boy, I can't remember. I don't even want to know how many hours we rode around in your car or my car practicing calling turkeys, but it's been so long since I've called one in. So, Todd, all this is leading me up to making a case for me using a gun this year instead of a bow.
Yes.
Oh, dude, whatever floats your boat. You know, that's kind of to me, I just love the whole bow aspect, and I guess someday, you know, hey, who knows? This year I picked up a gun for the first time and killed a buck, so it just depends on your situation. But I would rather see a guy, to be honest with you, or a girl, go out with a gun turkey hunting because they didn't quite feel comfortable than to go wound one, because you'll wound far more turkeys with a bow than you will deer. That's just, it comes with the territory. I don't know a guy who hasn't wounded a turkey, and man, I've had plenty of my exchanges with them. So I would say it's not for the faint of heart. It's not something you go out and shoot, you know, turkeys at 40, 50, 60 yards on food plots like guys do with whitetails. It's a different kind of hunt, but that's what I like about it. And it's, for me, I like the non-chase. To me, it's more relaxing. Like, I like to go out, sit in a blind, have some snacks, bring some drinks.
I agree with you totally. The older I get, the more I'm enjoying sitting in my double bow blind, because when my leg gets sore, I can move it, and I don't have to worry if there's a turkey standing behind me.
That's right. And for me, you know, when you're hunting one elusive buck, it's like that one hunt can make or break your whole season, and so there's a lot more pressure. And so during turkey season, my goal is to have fun, and if I kill one, great. But it's just a great time to be outside, and I think that's probably the number one reason why most turkey hunters love turkey hunting, is that the springtime of year is so beautiful. It's completely different than whitetail season, because whitetail season, everything's dying, everything's browning. Every day you go out, there's less and less foliage. It's just a different time of year. And the spring, it is the sights, the sounds, the smells, the flowers. You just can't beat it. It makes it. It's the perfect 180 from whitetail hunting, in my opinion. That's why I like about it.
Agreed.
Wow. Both of those, one sounded like a commercial for a funeral home. The other sounded like a commercial for like some sort of deodorant or spray, or God only knows.
And I feel fresh the entire hunt.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get back on course here and talk a little bit. If we could, let's just talk real quick about the differences in the style of hunting between sitting in a blind and waiting for a turkey to come to you versus chasing them. Because, you know, Cuz Strickland and us got into that a little bit, in that, you know, naturally a turkey's natural tendency is for the hens to come to the gobblers, and you know, that's what I'm used to. I don't mean that's what, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, you know, what tactics do you change, Jeff, that maybe we could apply or our listeners could apply?
To the run and gun, or to the movable. I hate saying run and gun, because that gives the impression of impatience. The key to sitting up against an oak tree style hunting with your shotgun is you still got to be pretty patient. I'll tell you a story. It's just funny, because when we started hunting down far corner of driftless region of Wisconsin, it was incredible. You'd hear 10 to 15 turkeys gobbling on any given morning on the farm you had permission to hunt. And the second year we were hunting, my dad had shot his bird, and he's sitting up on an overlook, and he can hear my brother. You know, he can hear me calling, and he knows where my brother and I are set up. And he said, "What were you guys doing?" He said, "Every time you would call," he said, "it wasn't long, and I seen you guys walking along the edge of the field, and then you walked in the woods, and it wasn't 5 minutes later, and where you had just come from, there were some turkeys standing there. He said all morning, and I remember that morning distinctly because it seemed like every time I started calling the next point over across the valley, a bird would start gobbling at me, and I'd get impatient, and I'd be like, we got to get over there. This thing's hot, and we'd sneak over there, sit down, and I'd start calling, and back where I was, one would gobble in, he would gobble back at me where I just had left, and then, of course, on the next point over, one would gobble. And we spent the whole morning doing that, and ultimately, though, that's the fun part is the mental. You've got to train yourself to stay there even when there's other turkeys tempting you to move, because when they start approaching you, sometimes they don't answer, and that's the fun mental. It's not what's happening with the turkeys, it's what's going on in your own head, and winning the battles of your decision making. That's the key to hunting that style and having a lot of fun at it. It's the self-discipline aspect of it.
Interesting. So you're saying even though you've got one that's maybe answered you once or twice and is relatively quiet since then, and you've got another one maybe on the next ridge over half mile, quarter mile, whatever, fill in the blank. You're sticking with the one that you originally started out on, whereas I am headed for the other ridge.
Well, that's the flip of the coin. That's the decision-making process. Either one is a risk, because the more you move around, the odds go up that you're going to you're going to bump one. If you got 200 acres to hunt, and by 10 o'clock in the morning you've covered the whole thing, you've bumped a few turkeys, and that is the fun of that style of hunting is the okay, do I do A or B? I'm always thinking of plan A, plan B, plan C. And you're gonna make more mistakes. I mean, I cannot tell. It is so common for me to be calling in a bird and push my patience to the very end, finally get up and try and make a move on him, and the next time I sit down and call, he's exactly where I had originally sat. It could be 15 minutes, it could be 2.5 hours, but they do it to me every time.
I have a question in regard to that, actually. Because we're hunting ground blind setups typically, I mean, we'll move them around and do that whole game. But if you have an encounter with a bird or multiple birds, let's say they come in to decoy setup on a ground blind, and like they do sometimes, they hang up, something weirds them out, they don't like the looks of it or whatever, and they leave. You've called at them, you've done your different stuff, they're obviously not coming in. Is there a chance to kill those same birds out of the same setup later on, a week later, a day later? What's your rule of thumb on that? Or is it like whitetails?
I would say, my gut feel on that is your odds of shooting them that day aren't very good. They aren't great the next day. But by 2 or 3 days later, typically, the actual flock dynamics and what has happened in the interplay between the different turkeys on your farm or in that landscape is going to eventually give you back that advantage in that spot. If you specifically want to get one of those turkeys, I would say your odds are going to go up if you do change that setup up a little bit.
Sure.
Here's what I would say. Something didn't work right, let them get out of sight, pull the decoys, get back in the blind, and hit the calling hard. So many people don't give calling enough credit because they've, here's the bottom line, I hate to tell you, but it adds a level of enjoyment to turkey hunting that that is huge. Got to practice your calling. I mean, again, it's because it isn't so much, what the turkeys think of it, it's what you think of it. And you do need to be fairly proficient at calling, and it works. I mean, turkeys communicate with each other from the time they come out of the shell till the day they die. They're communicating with each other, and it's a big part of turkey hunting. It's a fun part of turkey hunting, and it absolutely works. And you don't overlook the fact that, and I'm talking within 15 minutes of them disappearing. They disappear, get back in the blind, and absolutely pour the call into them. I've saved a lot of hunts like that.
And that's what's hard for me from the whitetail side, because less calling is more when it comes to big whitetails. Yep. And now get out of that mindset with turkeys. Now, I'm not saying you got to just relentlessly go after them with your calling, but you got to try it at times. You got to hit that call hard. I mean, because the thing is I've witnessed over the last 30 years, I mean, there's plenty of hens on the landscape that there is no way a human being could call as much as them. I mean, it's when a turkey is whatever, upset or demanding some attention from the rest of the flock, I mean, they aren't timid or quiet or anything about that. So people have got to understand that, pour the coals to them at times, because the real turkeys do it. That's what I suck at. I try being quiet and out-patiencing them.
Yeah. Well, just try it. I mean, try it, especially like I say, I would highly recommend, pulling them decoys down, stick them in the blind, and then just call them suckers right in.
I've never tried doing that before, like pulling the decoys and trying to get them to come in. That's just
Well, the disadvantage you'll have then is you may not have as nice a shot with the bow. The cool thing about the decoys is it typically will engage them to the point where you can get a shot. But Todd, I know you can get her done. When he's walking by at 20 yards, I think you'll do it.
I'm sure gonna try, man. I'm sure gonna try.
Todd, do you use just a slate call, or do you use a box call, or do you use a mouth call? What do you use?
I use a slate call because I feel most confident with it, and I can make the best sound. I've tried box calls, and that was not a good situation. I've tried mouth calls, and I almost choked.
Okay.
So I'm more of like the slate call kind of a guy, but I've bought, I don't know, a half dozen of them over the years, and I still go back to this one call. It's actually broken. One side's cracked off of it, but it still sounds the best. Uh-huh. So that's what I use. And when Eddie comes and hunts with me, he usually has a mouth call, so he can make a little bit more noise than I can. And then we'll go kind of back and forth and kind of, learn from one another. But we're both, we're lucky to be communicating with sign language. I'll put it that way.
Well, okay. So here's, back, Jason, when you and I started turkey hunting in the late 80s, we had to go listen to real turkeys to get our practice. But it's so cool now. And this is what I recommend people do. I mean, go on YouTube and type in real hen yelping and watch the real thing, and then call with them and drive the rest of the family crazy for a little while. But it's really important to practice your calling with the real, directly listening to the real thing. Because the one thing I've noticed in other hunters when I've heard them calling is they're too slow in their cadence. It's too labored, it's too slow. And the cadence is the yuck, 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 yuck. They're going, row, 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 row. And that's too slow. You gotta, and that's what listening to the real thing will speed you up a little bit on your cadence. They have a very timid presentation. You know, they sound like a scared, weak turkey, and that's not good. and they also have very poor note-to-note consistency, which is the result of not spending a little time and practicing with your call. So you can keep that nice, consistent note-to-note sound, which is when you practice with the real thing, you will notice how a turkey's calling will kind of change throughout a series, but the note in front and behind of an individual note is pretty much going to match that note. And that's what the real turkeys instinctually pick up on is kind of those rhythms and patterns, I think, more so than whether it's raspy or sassy or sexy or, you know, all the labels we put on the turkey sounds.
Gotcha.
You should hear the labels we put on our calls.
I can about imagine. Oh, yep.
Hey, the one thing I will say though is we can make it sound complicated as much as we want, but when a turkey is committed to coming in those decoys, you couldn't drag them away, and that's what makes it so much fun, because you don't know when all of a sudden that turkey is going to be in the right state of mind and he just goes wild, and that's boom, all of a sudden there he is, he's coming in hot and there ain't no stopping him. And I think, you know, that's part of what I think calling can do for you too, is it gives you a better opportunity to turn more turkeys on to create that situation over and over. And I guess I'm still trying to learn to get better at that, but man, it's fun. I just know just talking about it gets me excited for this upcoming season, and I think we start here right at the beginning of May, give or take. So Eddie drew a first season tag. We're going to be going after it, man.
It's April.
Is it April?
Yeah,
it
middle
is
of April.
Middle of April,
okay,
yeah.
Cool. And I know I don't know how this associates or not, but we have for the whitetail stuff, I always have a bunch of standing corn, and I've still got a bunch of standing corn, like beautiful, huge corn cobs on it and stuff. So I plan on mowing all that stuff, which is legal to do in Iowa. I'll just put it that way.
Yep.
But I'm going to plan on doing that and kind of locating. I kind of save some standing crops in specific areas for that reason, so that come turkey season, I'd have a couple places to start. And that's what I did last year, and it seemed to have a lot of gobblers when you got a lot of corn laying out on the ground. But what are the other major food sources? I mean, obviously turkeys eat acorns, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Acorns, grubs, stuff like that. But is there any, I guess, a double-sided question. Is there anything that you avoid while turkey hunting? And then what are the things that you really look for if you're, you know, hunting a new area, or for some of our novice turkey hunters out there who really don't have a clue where to start? You know,
when I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to hunt a particular piece of land, if the woods has been logged off recently and there's a lot of tops and stuff on the ground, typically I will stick more to the field type setups. You know, it's just more things for those turkeys to move around in when you're calling them in. I mean, my favorite farm to hunt in Wisconsin, where I'm hunting, you know, setting up against an oak tree, is, you know, it's about 400 acres of pastured mature hardwoods. So I'm kind of looking at, you know, the cover. Early on in the season, you can get away with hunting brushier, thicker woodses, but when it starts to green up, and I mean, this changes within a few days, you know, when it's starting to green up, you've got to maybe stick more to getting out in open fields, or nice naturally open wooded areas, or like I say, the pastured hardwoods. And you'll find that the turkeys do change their habits somewhat, you know, and again, you can never say anything absolute, but, you know, the turkeys tend to like to be in places where they can see predators. So a pastured hardwoods is going to, in the middle of May, the pastured hardwoods is much more appealing than a woods that I would consider to have great deer cover. With a lot of underbrush and growth that way. But I've seen turkeys using that thick stuff. One of the interesting things I've found in hunting some of the central Wisconsin areas is there's something in Tagald or lowlands that turkeys love to eat. And I don't know exactly what it is, but they are down in grouse cover a lot of times in late March through almost, towards the end of April. They get down in those, and I'm sure there's something to eat. So as far as avoiding places, I'm just trying to think more of the hunting aspects and where I can see things visibly. As far as what turkeys eat, that is the most intriguing and cool part of turkey hunting that I've found. It's always been said, well, a turkey will eat anything that doesn't eat it. I would consider myself a lifelong learner when it comes to the wild turkey. And I always look in the turkey's crops, and some of the things I've found have been so intriguing to me. Do we have time for me to tell a short story about a turkey crop?
Well,
Yeah, I want to hear that.
Yeah, let's do it. Was it a Big Mac?
Yeah. And fries. No.
I tell you, there's nothing better eating than a good turkey crop.
So this is quite a few years ago, Jason. I was hunting in the driftless region. It was still when you had to take your birds in and register them, and they weighed them and the whole thing, and the season closed anew. Anyway, I'd worked 3 birds gobbling off the roost, and they didn't come in, and I did the typical thing, my butt was sore, and I stretched my legs out and laid the gun in the lap, and of course we know what happened exactly 5 minutes after I did that, as I caught movement to my right, and there's a longbeard standing there looking at me. And I went, oh, geez, what did I do that for? If I'd have just kept my gun up, And of course he's on my hard right, and I'm right-handed, and he's starting to walk right. He had seen me. Well, luckily for me, he got behind a big oak tree. I swung around and shot him. Go over there. He's got a nice 8-9-inch beard and 3/4-inch spurs, 2-year-old bird. And I tag him, and I put him over my shoulder, and I walk all the way back to the truck, which is, 3/4 of a mile away uphill. And I got to the truck, and I set the turkey down, and I thought to myself, you know what? I am in really good shape this year. Man, I never took a break, and my arm isn't sore from carrying the turkey. I mean, I really felt good about myself. I'm like, this is cool, So I drive into Boscobel and register it. And there's a couple other guys with their birds there. The guy hangs it on the scale, and it goes to 11 pounds. And I kind of, I grab it and I pull it down and stuff. And the turkey's 11-pound adult gobbler. And the guys next to me are laughing. Oh, what'd you shoot that little turkey for? They got a 22-pounder. I'm like, well, it's got the same beard and spurs. So anyway, I take the turkey home, and I start cleaning it, and I open it up, and I notice that it's got a full crop, which is very odd to shoot a springtime gobbler in the morning with a full crop. Cut the crop out, and I slit it open, and it poofed out. And I thought, what in the world is going on here? It's as big as a softball, and it was 100% It was 100% dandelion fuzz. There were no heads, there were no leaves, there were no stems, there was nothing but pure fuzz. And I thought, that turkey had to fly off the roost, walk out in the field, and been eating dandelion fuzz, and then walked in the woods, and I shot him. But obviously, that's why he only weighed 11 pounds, because he's not picking high-protein sources of food to eat, right?
Clearly.
But yeah, pure dandelion fuzz. I found another really interesting story, and this will give you guys the impression of what I am a geek when it comes to turkeys. So I shot a fall hen late in the day, and she had a crop full of acorns. And what it was, though, there was one full acorn without the outer shell, and there was one half, and everything else was a 1/4 inch and smaller pieces. And I started thinking about that. I'm like, oh, well, the turkeys must peck the acorns into pieces and eat them. But then I'm thinking to myself, yeah, but she had a whole one and a half of one. So why would they spend the time to peck it open? So, or, to peck it apart. So then I took a full acorn and I took a needle nose pliers, and I thought, well, I wonder, so I tried like hammering at it and like almost like a turkey's beak, and it's a considerable amount of effort to get the inside of an acorn out of a shell when you're doing it in that fashion. So obviously it became apparent to me that turkey did not, they aren't pecking apart acorns. They aren't taking them out of the shells. And I'm talking, this is the size of a baseball, and the majority of it was little teeny tiny pieces. It had to have been the stuff that falls out of the deer's mouth or the squirrels when they're eating it, and their eyesight is so good on the forest floor that they pick them teeny tiny little pieces of acorn up, because it just doesn't make sense that they would have spent the time and effort to peck the acorn apart, right? So again, there's some of that geekiness showing. I mean, I literally took a needle nose pliers and I was testing acorns to see, how do turkeys eat acorns?
They do eat them whole, correct, too?
Absolutely. I have found full shell, with the shell on acorns in a gobbler's crop, and I found full with the shell hickory nuts in a gobbler's crop. And now that boggles my mind, too. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, you got to wonder how their body breaks down. I mean, I can get an acorn because to a certain extent that's going to be relatively soft, but did you say a walnut?
Hickory nut.
Hickory nut?
Yeah, shag bark hickory nut.
Yikes.
The whole thing was in his crop. I found in a gobbler I shot, they really do switch to the green leafy matter as soon as they can, is what I've seen in the spring. I shot a gobbler that had a full crop of primarily alfalfa leaves, but then I was going through it, and there was an entire pitcher plant, they're 8 inches tall, 8 to 10 inches tall, and it's kind of they're purple and green, and they grow in moist, shady woods. He had the whole thing was in his crop, and I thought to myself, now how did he swallow that?
Wow, like a gator apparently.
Yeah,
or a snake.
I watched them come across fields, like, as typically we're hunting, CRP fields or whatever, and they eat a ton of green. Just like what you said, I think they're just as hungry for the fresh green sustenance that spring brings as anything. So they're definitely eating a lot of the greens as well, and just even on my green food plots for deer and stuff like clovers, just like what you said, they seem to be pretty much eating the entire time they're up moving.
Yeah. Yep. A lot of times I've found wild mint in their crops, and you cut it open and you can smell it. It's it's like, wow, it's wild mint.
But they can't, just like any bird, they can't taste anything.
You know what? I've never been able to ask a turkey if they can taste. So I
have to take a survey.
And I suppose if a scientist would look at a turkey's tongue under a microscope, maybe they could figure that out. But they certainly have preferences, on what they're eating. It's just amazing. How do they know this stuff? How do they know what to eat and what not to eat,
I suppose their mama teaches them, just like deer. They follow and they, do everything through association, and they just imitate. But there's got to be a mouth feel and a swallowing feel that they have for each different type of food. And I watch the same thing. I watch these whitetails eat acorns, and I try to taste everything that the game I'm hunting chases in it. If you've ever eaten or tried an acorn before.
Oh, they're bitter.
Oh, horrible. And I watched one, I mean, just one particular time I had an encounter with this. I was watching this little spikehorn, and he was feeding around my tree for a half an hour, it must have been. Just eating acorn. I mean, like a pig, just chomping and chomping and chomping. And I was right up above this creek, and I figured, my God, that thing has got to be getting I mean, it has to want to wash that nasty, bitter taste down. I watched that sucker go down to the creek, cross the creek. He never even put his mouth down to grab a drink of water. I'm just like, that's just what they eat, you know.
You're kind of a whitetail geek, you know that? That's cool.
I am, dude.
That's cool. You notice them things, and that is what makes hunting so intriguing, is the desire for lifelong learning. I'm telling you what, Todd, when you go out this spring and you take a shotgun and you start playing that chess game, hint, hint. You'll find other aspects of turkey hunting you hadn't noticed before. And whether it be this year, next year, 10 years down the road, it's the lifelong learning aspect of hunting is kind of the line that I see in people who not only pull more enjoyment out of hunting, but keep it up longer and are, in the end, more successful on a year-to-year basis.
I definitely know that much. That. Go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry. That's where your quest for knowledge should never end, and if it does, and you start getting bored, I think that's when you might as well, pick a different sport or something. But
switch to video games.
Yeah.
or golf.
I mean, dude, every day of the year, even yesterday, I'm out chainsawing, trying to make a setup a little bit better, trying to create something. There's always something to be done, and there's always something to be learned, and that's what, that's what makes these animals so nuts, just like what you talk about. So I will be paying a little bit better attention this spring, that's for sure.
Cool. Jeff, you mentioned at the onset of our podcast, and I don't know that we've covered any one particular topic perfectly well, but we've kind of been all over, haven't we? We sure have had a good time. Tell us a little bit about your decoy business.
So and I think I mentioned this last year, I have come to the realization that, and this is through research I've done, on things that the ornithologists have discovered. But basically, daylight active birds have a different type of vision than humans. And turkey feathers have iridescence. And what iridescence is it's a microscopic structure on the feather that refracts light. So obviously, what a turkey sees and what a human sees are two different things. And we can, as humans, only speculate what a turkey sees when it sees another turkey, which I wish I could see, because it's got to be unbelievable. Like
a rainbow, man.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, a turkey looks gorgeous to me. Now, add another spectrum of light and more enhanced color. Oh, my gosh, whatever. But,
you wouldn't even wear camo out hunting.
Exactly. I mean, we don't know what a turkey sees when it's walking around in the woods. I mean, that's why you got to be careful about your camo and what you're doing in that aspect. But anyway, so, of course, my dad's a taxidermist. I quit using decoys many years ago, and eventually I got to the point where I had him mount a stuffer for me, and I noticed an immediate difference in the turkey's reactions when they came and saw that hand decoy that I was using. So the years since, I had found over the years it's very difficult to use skin-mounted stuffers because they're very fragile and hard to keep in nice shape. And I've, to the dissatisfaction of many of my hunting partners, I've chased turkeys off my decoys, gotten out of the blind, and in their mind, messed the hunt up. But man, I wasn't letting them wreck my dad's hen decoy that he made for me. What I'm making now is a decoy. It's an answer to that for the people who love using stuffers. I don't use the skin or the entire feathers. I just use the iridescent portion. And when I tell people, yes, I glue every feather on my decoy, they look at me as if I was absolutely insane. But that is
and
what
you
I'm
are.
doing. Yep. And I am taking them to shows. I have a limited quantity available every year, and they're getting a little bit more popular from what I'm finding. So it's just that passionate drive that I have to find a solution to a problem. And
that's a big one there.
I love them.
No, I've heard that from so many people. I had a big conversation with some guys at I think it was at the Iowa show, but I did a project not too many years ago for a guy who did waterfowl decoys, and he had a UV paint, but he kind of he basically filled me in on how birds see, and that's where you got ducks and geese and all these migratory animals, migratory birds that when they're 1,000 feet above a decoy setup, they can see those animals down there like you and I can see each other walking through a building. It's their form of communications through that UV thing. So the feather thing, there ain't no doubt about it. I've heard that from so many different guys. What, if you don't mind me asking, what does one of your really sweet decoys run?
They're $375 each, and whether it's a hen, I have a hen, a Jake, and a Tom, and they're basically, a few years ago, Wisconsin changed their law on the selling of game, legally taken game bird feathers, which allowed me to actually be able to harvest a turkey legally and then utilize its feathers and then actually, sell them, which they're just a part of my decoy. And, I think that was above and beyond the fact that I'm, making these decoys. For years, I would haul down to the ditch by my creek the remains of the turkeys I'd clean, and it always bothered me to throw away those gorgeous structures that are the wild turkey feather, and it gives me a lot of satisfaction now that I'm using even more of the turkeys that myself and my family and friends are harvesting. And so there you go.
They are unbelievable, and once you kill a turkey, I still am mesmerized by them when you get to play with them and touch them and all that. But they've got so many different types of feathers, and just out in the sunlight, they're just gorgeous.
Yep, and let me tell you this. So since I've been making these decoys, and I'm literally pulling feathers off of each individual turkey and looking at them, I will tell you this. Every single turkey has dramatically different iridescence and patterns and feather sizes and feather shapes. I mean, it's opened my eyes to things in a whole new world by seeing the absolute variation in, every single bird, which from 25, 30 yards away out in the field, they all look very similar, but I am telling you, the differences from bird to bird are tremendous.
They probably
they know that. That's like you say, that's their communication. They know who's who. Just like a human, I can look at Jason and I know he's Jason.
Dude, Tyler Tissue and I were having a conversation about this. We were talking about decoys, and he's like, "Yeah, I want to get one with a real hide," because he's like, it just looks so much different. And I think whitetails are the same thing. I think their eyes are meant to see each other and to see predators. They're not made to look at colors and all this pretty stuff humans see. So I think light on a whitetail's body does the same exact thing with whitetails. It's just their secret form of communication that we'll never understand.
Exactly.
Unless
we can only speculate, and the people who I find tend to be more successful are the ones who have that open mind and are able to accept the fact that we aren't going to ever know the big one I use in my seminars is, my uncle said to me a few years ago when he came to get some turkey calls from me at a sports show, I said, yeah, take some of my calls, no big deal. And he says, well, I'm not like you. I don't know what I'm saying to the turkeys. And I didn't, I just laughed it off. And I thought to myself later, I'm like, well, this is a good thing to use in the seminars because, the honest truth, I have no idea what I'm saying to the turkeys. We don't know. We'll never know. It's just over time I've figured out that, when I cut and cackle and yelp hardcore at them, there's a pretty good chance they're going to come in, so I better keep ready.
Love it.
Well, hey, one final thought, and it's the same question I think that I asked Lee Lukoski on our podcast. You can do all the calling in the world, rattling in the world, whether it's deer or turkeys, decoys, whatever the case may be. But it seems to me like the one common theme or the one common thread that they all have is it all boils really down to patience. Is that right, Jeff?
Absolutely. And I would say persistence. Patience and persistence is definitely going to help you. And how do you get your mind to get into that? And that is confidence. And just like with whitetails, it's confidence in your setup, confidence that you've picked a great place to put your stand. It's in turkey hunting, confidence that when I take that striker to the friction call, when I put that striker on there, I've practiced enough, it's not going to surprise me because I've seen it happen many times where they hit a bad note and it instantly reduces your confidence, and in turn your patience goes down, your persistence goes down, people start calling turkeys call shy, they blame other factors on their lack of success, and it's more of the mental battles that we're winning to be more successful.
Perfect. Todd, any final thoughts?
Don't listen to anything I say.
I love it. That's great.
No, I'm excited to get back after it. We got Jeff. I've got a group of turkeys here. I've been watching all winter, and I put some corn piles out after hunting season just to monitor sheds and stuff. And so I get this group, probably 5 or 6 gobblers, and all of them have like 10-inch plus beards. And
do you put trail cameras on those spots to look at the birds?
Yeah.
And I do too. Yep.
That's what I'm going to do as I get closer. I'm just getting all my cameras out of the field yet from deer season and from shed hunting, but that's kind of what I usually in the past have been doing, is just kind of putting them on different field edge setups just to be able to know kind of out of the gate where, a majority of
who's there and when they're coming. That's a huge aspect. My question to you, Todd, is do you have any birds with 1 3/4 spurs or bigger? Because my standing offer is to anybody, if someone would put me onto a bird with 1 3/4 or longer spurs, it's free calls for life. Okay, there's that offer.
I love it. Dude, I don't know if they have 1-inch spurs, man. I usually look at the beards.
You've got to put the camera low enough so we can see their legs. Get it down close to the ground.
I got a funny story to close this out here. Last year, I turkey hunted, and it was my first night out, I think, and I was self-filming, and I had a bunch of toms coming in, and I had one of them, and it was a giant, and it's strutting back and forth, and I came to full draw 7 times, and finally I ended up shooting this turkey. After the fact, I was so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got the giant or whatever. And then after the fact, one of these hardcore turkey hunters had to point out, dude, the one you shot wasn't the big one that came in. Didn't you look at his spurs? And I'm like, who's looking at spurs, man? I'm just trying to shoot something. So anyway, I didn't shoot the big boy.
That small bird off to the side's got the giant spurs, yeah.
Pretty much. So I usually just worry about shooting a turkey that has a beard, and then the spurs are what they are. But if I do shoot one with 1 3/4 inch spurs, I'll take pictures and send it to you, buddy.
Okay. Well, it's not if you shoot one; it's if I shoot one.
Oh, I thought it was a free decoy if I shoot one.
No. It's free calls for life for someone who puts me onto a bird with that big of spurs.
I must have got confused.
Yeah, no, you don't. Yeah, you can go and shoot all you want of them, but no, that's my goal, because I have always said that you can equate it perfectly to whitetails. 175-inch whitetail, obviously, to me, is a buck of a lifetime. 1 3/4, 1.75. That's a booner turkey, Okay. Yep.
How old are these big ones? Like when you get, when you've got a big boss Tom that's running around, with a big 12-inch beard, 11-inch beard or whatever, big 22, 23, 24-pound bird, what kind of ages, would you guess those are?
Now, the majority of the high-pecking order gobblers that have anywhere between 1 and 1.5 inch spurs are typically your 3-year-olds, maybe 4-year-olds. But anytime you get over that 1 3/8 area, they could be between 4 and 12 years old. So,
oh gosh, they live that long?
Oh yeah, yep. Not many of them, just like whitetails. Sure. It's a very low percentage of them make it to that age, but. Yeah.
The world record I killed had to have been an older bird, and when I brought it to the taxidermist, we tried to age the teeth, but he couldn't get a good figure on it.
He could not even with the cementum anelli, he couldn't, no.
But I always wondered how old that turkey was, because he was so huge. I mean, he was 26 pounds, and just, he looked like he had basically ruled the roost.
So he was in his prime. I mean, I would guess 5 or 6, but who knows? Yeah, he could have been 10 years old.
Is there any way to age a turkey?
Not that I know of to the scientific level that they've taken the whitetails, with some of the different things they do there. And I know for a fact it's very genetically based, because the one turkey I know was old. A mutual friend of Jason and I had shot a bird in central Wisconsin that's had one wing tag on it, and I forget if it was, it was very old. It was 8, 9, 10 years old, and I would have guessed his spurs as a 3-year-old. I mean, they were just a little over an inch, so there's no saying for sure, on that. So
whitetails are the same way, genetics, because you're looking at judging by the antlers, because I've seen a bunch of old deer that just have spindly racks that didn't look like it, and then also their diet, because that's my biggest argument to the tooth aging whitetails is that if you have one animal that lives up in northern Wisconsin that's eating dirt most of his life and cedar branches,
and browse,
and browse, and you compare that to a whitetail that's been feeding on corn and beans and all this lush greenery down here, the amount of wear and tear on their teeth has to be night and day. So anyway,
there's no question. Yeah,
it is what it is. It really doesn't matter, but it's very curious. I always wondered how old those turkeys are.
I always thought that if a bird is old, in that 25+ pound range, he's in his prime. So he's going to be 3, 4, 5 years old. The turkeys I've shot with really long, sharp, pointy spurs typically aren't weighing in that higher, they're 17, 18 to 20 pounds in the same part of the world and landscape where 25 to 28 pounders are common. So, but yeah, when you're at an outdoor show and you look at the shapes and sizes of the different people's bodies, I'm sure there's some of that going on in the turkey world too.
Oh, you don't want to go to the Harrisburg show, I'll tell you that much. I'm just kidding, people of Pennsylvania.
Cut that part out, Jason.
I'm just joking. But it is a crazy place. Anyway, because you see a million people, so you get to see a lot of different types of folks.
Exactly.
I have one last quick question, and it regards to turkeys and eating them. I love to eat anything, and that's, as big of a part of what we do, chasing these animals. When you clean yours, do you just take the breast out, or do you take the whole thing?
I utilize the breast and the thighs on an adult gobbler. I found it's just a little more work than it's worth for the actual drumstick on a springtime gobbler. On a fall hen, I take the whole leg area, and I even like cutting out the piece of meat that's up on the back, up above the drumstick. You can slice that out. It's like walleye cheeks. You cut that little piece out, but Wild turkey is it's a family of 5, 3 kids and my wife and I. Wild turkey is our number one favorite meal. And I have a very simple way of making them. I put the turkey meat. I usually have one side, a breast and a thigh, that I make in the slow cooker for like overnight. And then I take the bone out of the thigh and I kind of sort through it. I pick through it and make sure there's no BBs in there. And I take all the non-desirable stuff out. I bread it in a like a mix, like a fish fry type mix that I just make my own, and then I saute or fry that in canola oil, and what that does is that replaces the moisture, because the wild turkey meat can be kind of dry, and paprika is one of the important ingredients to the mix. Make sure you got plenty of paprika in there, and we eat it with cranberries and like maybe some squash or sweet potatoes. It is our family's favorite meal.
I'm gonna have to try the thighs. Jason, have you ever tried the thigh?
Yeah. Yep.
That makes sense. I just the person who showed me how to do, they just took the breast and they're like, oh, you don't want to eat the rest of it. It's tougher than heck. But
yeah.
I like to.
It's nice the way I do it, because you've got some dark meat and some white meat, and it all kind of gets mixed together. And yeah, it's
try that. We just got a deep fryer. Just my parents just actually gave it to us at Christmas because they just didn't use it much. So I've officially fried stuff once. What the heck can go wrong? I'm gonna go crazy.
Oh boy, here we go.
Make sure you have a thermometer in that oil.
I like my turkey rare. In the past, we usually just I usually just grill my cut breasts just like back straps basically, and just grill them and just season them and not overly do it. I usually keep them a little bit pink on the inside, and they're delicious, but let's face it, they have a limit as far as taste goes. I mean, you could probably do a lot better than I do, but I think a slow cooker on the breast might be a better route.
Try it this way, you won't go back.
Well, we'll have to get the recipe later from me officially, but Jason, You want to take us out?
Where are we going? I'm just kidding.
Turkey hunting in about 3 weeks.
Thank you so much for watching the White Knuckle podcast. Next time, we have our new sunglasses that are turkey eyes. Oh. You too can see like a goblet.
There you go. Hey, Jeff, tell people that are listening, hopefully they're listening. Hopefully we haven't lost them this far into the show with all our shenanigans. But where are you going to be next? Where can they buy your calls? All of that good stuff.
Go to FredrickChampionsChoice.com. You can order my calls online. I will be at the Ohio Deer and Turkey Expo this upcoming weekend, and of course I'll be in Madison at the Deer and Turkey Expo, out in the hallway, out in the atrium. Walk in the door and listen for the calling. You'll find me.
Hey, well, Jeff, you're going to be on a tour here coming up soon. I believe it's going through Madison, but aren't you going to be on Dancing with the Stars coming up soon?
Well, I hadn't been notified.
You're good when you're on Dancing with the Stars in Madison.
Yeah. Funny.
Stories.
MC Hammer pants and all, baby.
Can't touch this.
Inside joke.
Oh.
Yeah. Jason and Jeff used to be performers, dancers, back in the day.
Well, not dancers like. Well, never mind. Oh my.
Not the way where they would actually make any money.
We didn't make any money.
All right.
This has gotten way out of control.
It's time to stop.
Thank you guys, everybody, for listening to this episode of the White Knuckle Podcast. And going into turkey season, hopefully you'll have as much fun as we do talking about it. But it's coming. Good luck shed hunting. Be safe. God bless.
Well, there you have it, episode number 1 of our turkey show. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as we enjoyed ranting and raving and going on. And hopefully in amongst all of that stuff, you picked up a few tips on turkey hunting from Jeff. He's definitely a wealth of knowledge and definitely has a passion, like very few people that I know, for turkey hunting. If you'd like to find Jeff, you can definitely find him on his Facebook page, which is Jeff Fredrick Champion's Choice Turkey Calls. You can also, from his Facebook page, get to his website. I'll have a link in our show notes for that website. And I'd encourage any of you that are going to the Deer and Turkey Expo in Madison to stop by his booth and check out his calls. He and Tony Myers will both be there, and they'll have all of their calls on hand there. With that, I'll get to closing out the show for the day. Thanks again to our partner, Ozonics Hunting. For those of you who haven't heard, they are not available in stores anymore. They're only available specifically through their website. Now, if you want the special deal that White Knuckle is offering, you can go to www.ozonixhunting.com/WKP, and you can see whatever the deal of the week is or the deal of the month. I'm not quite sure how we're going to do that, but I guarantee if you go there right now, there will be a deal. That said, to get any of their products, you do need to visit their website, www.ozonixhunting.com. With that, we'll close out the show today. I won't bore you with all of the directions on the podcast stuff like I normally do. Just do us a favor. Give us your review on iTunes, Stitcher, Radio, or Google Play. That's it. Jason out.